And everybody, welcome to Press TV's News Review program, where we get in depth in one of the day's top stories. Israeli settlers have torched two homes belonging to Palestinians following an anti-Israeli operation in the occupied West Bank on Saturday. Palestinians clashed with Israelis in the village of Safa near Ramallah. Earlier Saturday, Israeli troops killed yet another Palestinian, this time an 18-year-old teenager. They shot him after he opened fire on regime forces at the Qalandiya checkpoint north of al-Quds. At least two Israelis, including a soldier, were reportedly injured in the shooting operation. The al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, the military wing of the Palestinian Fatah Movement, took responsibility for the attack. Israel has intensified its crackdown against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and Al-Quds in recent months. Joining us now for the program is Daniel Lazar, journalist and author, joining us out of New York, and Firas Al-Najim, human rights activist, joining us from Toronto, Canada. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. I guess, Daniel, we'll start with you in New York there. We're seeing things really, we've always seen tensions in the occupied West Bank. Seems like we're seeing them with much more frequency. What's changed, and why do you think there is no lull to tensions these days?
Well, there's a new government in place, and the new government is significantly farther to the right than anything Israel's seen before. I mean, Israel is truly teetering on the verge of classic fascism. This political development is making itself felt in terms of an increasingly harsh treatment of the Palestinians, especially in the occupied territories. I mean, Israel is declaring war, and it's a one-sided war too, I might add. And no one knows what's going to follow on the heels of this, but I think that Israel is preparing to escalate in some very dramatic fashion.
Thank you, Daniel. Firas, welcome to the program. Firas, why do you think we're seeing such an upbeat in tensions and violence these days throughout the occupied West Bank?
As the colleague over there said, that the extremist new cabinet is working in a very radical manner, and they're, breaching more international law. They're stealing more homes. They're threatening with more settlement growth. And they have no plan to back up and support, in any way, some type of peaceful solution to this, to the problems that have happened in Palestine and the Israelis. Even though we know very well that the only solution to this is resistance, and I think the youth in the West Bank have gained more momentum and gained more experience, and their fighting skills are becoming stronger. As we've seen a few days back, where helicopters had to come and launch missiles. This I read about hasn't happened since maybe 2006 or something like this. So it's been many years where they didn't have to use any, planes or helicopters or anything like that in that type of manner in the West Bank. So it does show an escalation. It does show a major development that the resistance in the West Bank is growing. And this is the only way they're going to go on their knees, is obviously if the resistance grows in the West Bank. I mean, Gaza is a very strong stronghold for the resistance. As we know, they've been in battles with the Zionist regime a few times, and the Zionists had to deter and pull back and stop the battle. But even though they threatened harshly and said, made a lot of promises that they would do this and that, and thankfully they didn't do that and they pulled back. I mean, but now that the West Bank, even with the recent statement by Imam Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, he said that it's very necessary, very important for the resistance in West Bank to grow and become more powerful in regards of operations against the Zionists. And also with Sayyid Khamenei's also statement recently also saying that all Muslims have a duty in supporting the liberation process of Palestine, and that it is mandatory for every Muslim to be involved. I think this is also bringing them more empowerment and support to the Palestinians in the West Bank. And it's going to escalate, as we've seen, I think, today, and it happened in Jerusalem as well. They killed a Palestinian. So I think the resistance needs to be unified all over Palestine.
Thank you. And Daniel, just last week, and we saw it yesterday as well as today, we were seeing settler violence against Palestinians. Last week, we saw them torching cars and businesses and homes and vandalizing personal property, attacking the streets. Benjamin Netanyahu came on TV and he said he condemns the violence on both sides. He implored security services to basically implement a uniform application of the law and protect Palestinians against settlers, while Palestinians are saying the security forces are on the streets providing the settlers with cover while they get attacked.
That's absolutely true. There's no question about that. I mean, it really resembles Tsarist Russia, where the Black Hundreds, with the backing of the police and the Tsarist regime, staged pogroms against Jews. So the situation is remarkably similar. So I'm not at all surprised that the Netanyahu government is essentially aiding the pogromists. It's covering for them. It's sending in police to protect them, while at the same time coming down extraordinarily heavily on Palestinians. And
Firas, do you think we're going to continue to see this runaway bloodshed and violence as long as this extreme far right-wing government and cabinet is in power?
Yes, I mean, it's not just this regime. In general, the Zionist regime from the beginning of its establishment till now, all we've seen is bloodshed, lack of regard to any human rights, lack of any regard to international laws. They don't care. They have a green light, and they don't get penalized like Russia gets penalized, or how they try to penalize and defame the Islamic Republic of Iran and impose sanctions and things like that. They have a focus, they have an agenda, and the United Nations is not truly working in a way that shows equality. Because the first regime right now that should be punished and should be blockaded, and there should be army enforcements, going down to support the people of Palestine, should be through the United Nations. There's no resolutions. There's sometimes condemnations here and there, but there's nothing really happening, and the Zionist regime continues to shed the blood of the Palestinians. Shireen Abu Akleh was the biggest example of that. Now, what happened till now? There's not even a real investigation happening. What justice happened for Shireen Abu Akleh? We didn't see nothing. That was a clear crime. She had her journalist press, showing clearly, and she was in an area where there was a clash. They didn't respect her. They shot her, and they made a mockery of it. You know what I mean? Going back and forth. And the only time Netanyahu condemns his own Zionist extremists is when it gets so publicly covered by the media, and it looks very, very barbaric in a way, where he tries to lighten it up and make it look like he has some equality, and that he cares about laws, and he cares about protecting the nation and so on. So he has to come up with a little condemnation, just like the Zionist lobbies here. They also condemn this little settler of violence because it looks very cruel and very barbaric, and it's very clear, and it's all over the media. So they have to make it look like they care a little bit about human rights, and they care a little bit about criticizing their own system that they support. It's a game, they're just manipulating things. They just want to, use it later on and say, oh, we condemned our own people as well when they made a mistake, or when they were, breaching international law. But the Zionist regime, its foundation, every day breaches laws. What about the settlement expansions? What about imprisoning children? What about imprisoning all types of different political opponents or activists? You know what I mean? Like, it's ongoing. How much people are in the prisons with the Zionists right now that are Palestinian? Marwan Barghouti, there's so many names that we can bring up, and it continues and continues. And unfortunately, the only way it's going to work with the Zionist regime is armed resistance and a unified front of activists that stand up against the Zionist regime.
Could I speak
Daniel, we have about a minute left. Your final thoughts,
well,
please.
I just want to point out that that calling for armed resistance is very easy from North America. But in fact, the Palestinians have been losing, not since '67, but since 1919 or thereabouts. It's a 100 years war which the Palestinians have consistently lost. And picking up the gun is a sign of weakness, not strength. It is not going to win Palestinian liberation. That is the unfortunate truth. Because the Israeli armed state is many, many, many times more powerful than the Palestinian resistance and will crush it effortlessly. And by the way,
there's a unified front. It should be a unified front.
Talk about a right-wing government in Jerusalem. Quite right. How about the right-wing government in Gaza, which is headed by Hamas, a fiercely anti-Semitic, anti-communist, anti-socialist?
No, you can't call them. They're not anti-Semitic. They respect the Jews.
We have two.
Hamas has supported the Jews a lot of times, and Rabbi Israel David Weiss was visiting Hamas. I'd have to dispute on that part. Hello?
Okay, Daniel, it seems like the Palestinians, okay, we don't have much time left, but Daniel,
no, we
the
can't,
Palestinians
I just
have
wanna,
tried.
I just want to make it clear. Ismail Haniyeh has met with rabbis that have came there, and he's not anti-Semitic. They're not against the Jews. They made it clear they're against the Zionists and the Zionist movement. It's a political ideology. They don't have hate towards
Hamas
Jews.
charter has classic anti-Semitic language, and that language
No, it's
has
just
never been
misinterpreted
repealed.
the wrong way, sir.
It's not
it's
misinterpreted the wrong way. It quotes the protocols of the elders of Zion. It's absolutely pathetic, and it does more harm to the Palestinians than even Zionism does. Okay.
Sir, I have to dispute that because, I mean, it's misinterpreted. Just like how the media paints the Palestinians as the aggressors or the people that are doing terrorism, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm going to cut you guys off. We're about 2 minutes over time. We'll have to continue this at some other time. But I want to thank you both for joining us and your respective perspectives on this. Daniel Lazar there joining us from New York, and Firaz Al-Najim joining us from Toronto, Canada. And that brings us to the conclusion of this segment, everyone, of your Press TV's News Review program. Thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye for now.